86.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. Story of my life, always fucking tired. And yeah, that's the sound of the weekend starting. Fuck around. We're recording. We're live. God damn it.
We're live.
Welcome
Season
in.
1, Episode 1.
Season 1, Episode fucking 1. Welcome everybody. This is, as he said and I said, at least once now, Season 1, Episode 1 of podcast Beyond the Shadows, where we talk about paranormal and such. My
On
name
the
is...
lights.
Yeah. My name is Victus, and this is my longtime very best friend, cohort, Aeon.
I'm Aeon Alta. I'm not as versed in paranormal UFO cryptozoology as my buddy Victus, but I have an interest in it. I've just never done a whole lot of reading in it. So this podcast is as much for me as it is for all of you. I'm going to learn from Victus, just like you are, and we're going to explore topics, and we're going to decide whether the stories we're reading are the real deal or just bullshit. So, or at least based on what we think. Based on what we think.
Which they could be bullshit, but we're still going to fucking talk about them.
It could be.
So, yeah.
What do we have this week?
This week we have the Phoenix fucking Lights. This is my very, very favorite, and probably one of the best and most well-documented cases of UFOs in the United States, in my humble opinion. Jesus Christ. Like,
easily the most recorded.
When I found out you didn't know anything about it, I wanted to just slap you on the back of the head and tell you to quit living under a fucking rock, because I knew about this as a kid, because this was 97, so how old am I now? Wait, so I was less than 10 years old. I'm not good with mental math, all right? I was less than 10 years old when this happened.
I guess that would have been same? Yeah. Yeah, 86, so 11?
Yeah, so we would be 11 years old. I remember hearing about it on the news, and, my dad kind of pushed me to take things into account, because I grew up listening to Coast to Coast AM on the radio.
You got me into it.
Yeah.
You got me into listening to Coast to Coast.
And when I heard about it on the news, it immediately sparked my interest, and I've been interested in it ever since. So I thought it was only logical that we opened with my favorite story. Sorry for being so greedy, but but this is hands down my favorite story, and it is so well documented. And over the years, the narrative has kind of changed, but not enough to the point where it made me go like, you know what, maybe that was fake. But
I did a little bit of reading to try to catch up with you. So it'll be interesting to hear you tell me, and then I did like a novice search. I did what, anybody who's never heard of it, because I'm sure there's some people who are like, what are the Phoenix Lights? They're going to go Google it, and they're going to pull down the first 3 to 5 results. So that's what I did.
Right.
And I have some papers here, and it's like both ways. It's both like, oh, it's a hoax, and then it's also, oh, except there's all these other things that make it seem like it's not a hoax. But it's a hoax, but it's not a hoax. And that's all in a single, one person single writing. So
right.
I will have questions, but why don't you lay it on us?
I will do my best to answer those questions from the best of my ability. Okay, so really, I haven't heard too much about this since I was a kid. I've heard it on some podcasts, heard some other people talking about it. But every source I pull from has a different timeline of how things happened.
Yep.
And
that.
By the graces of ChatGTP, I was able to kind of collate information together, and then I edited it and put things into perspective as best as I could. So be warned, this is not the full story. There is much more to it, and if anybody out there is interested, I highly recommend that you go out and do your research, because there's so much more that we just can't cover here, because there's like old school message boards still out there with all this information on it. That's where I pulled a lot of this information from.
Well, like 10,000 people saw this.
Yeah, at least.
So I mean, there's bound to be, there's a ton of sources I saw, and like you said, the reports are conflicting, but you're talking 10,000 people around a metropolitan city, from different angles, and some people outside the city, so yeah, I saw the same thing, all kinds of accounts of it.
So, Jesus Christ, I think at my peak when I was researching, I had 18 different tabs open, and I was trying to go back as far as I could to establish the earliest timeline to bring it together into what we know canonically as the Phoenix Lights.
Okay.
So we'll start off with what I get here. The story really starts 2 years before the events of 1997.
Oh, see that I didn't know that.
Right. So all through the year 1995, there were hundreds of reported sightings of red or amber lights over the city. And there's tons of photos out there, but none of them are very good quality because, remember, this was mid to late 90s.
Yeah. I've seen the video. It makes your brain hurt.
Photos are not great from the 90s. Any kind of light in the sky at night.
Oh, in the 90s. Video and pictures at night are just terrible in the 90s.
Well, yeah.
Awful.
They're so grainy. And, I know a thing or two about photography, and I feel like that's going to come in handy in this podcast later. Because I can explain why certain things look shitty. I can explain, if they're... Generally, I can find information, what type of equipment they were recording on or taking pictures on. Okay. And I got a pretty good head on my shoulders about image and video quality, about older hardware, because about my obnoxious camera collection.
Yes. Well, the kind of the interesting thing about an older story like this too is, now with the advent of AI and AI video editing and AI photo editing, is it's getting harder and harder to pick out the sort of artifacts that would be left from editing.
Right.
Whereas in the 90s, there weren't a ton of options. And it used to be, a lot of the stuff that they would rule out as like a hoax, for this or that, were based on artifacts that were left over from editing video or splicing or like superimposing something in front of something else and seeing the focus difference. So, a lot of these videos are actually easier in this case to pick out, for real or fake.
Right. Because when it comes to the video and audio from the 90s, you're not going to get a lot of hoaxing. Because there wasn't a lot of tech. Photoshop wasn't a thing back then.
No.
The only thing you could really do to hoax something would be to do the ghost effect like Disney does with the pane of glass at an angle.
Yeah.
It would be that, or to...
Like a haunted mansion?
Right. There's a term for it. It's somebody's ghost. I forget the fellow's name. It's either that or you're going to double expose a piece of film.
Right.
Which is doable. Right. You really got to know what you're doing. So there are ways of doing it, but when we're on this scale, we're not gonna see this because
this many people, this many angles.
Yeah, when you'll find out later, there were so many angles of this. There's tons of photos out there, but none of them have very good quality, so they generally went unnoticed or explained away.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in 95.
Checks out.
The most popular experience came that night from Lynn, a health educator. And
now, which night is this?
This is the night of, I believe this audio clip is from 97.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and pull up this audio clip.
We certainly took advantage of it. No question about that. But no, I don't consider
it
a matter of ridicule.
No, that's the wrong audio clip. Holy shit. Wow, fuck me sideways. Wrong audio clip.
You get to cut this part out. Be like, now this audio clip.
Here we go. The Lynn interview. Here we go. This is from YouTube. All credits. This is from... I had the credits written down here somewhere. Lynn, health educator. We're going to see what this audio sounds like.
Both my husband and I witnessed 3 amber orbs in a triangle formation, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath, very close to our home, about 100 yards from our home, hovering above a private desert area. It was startling and it was amazing. At the same time, there was nothing there but blackness and these 3 amber orbs. And
Okay, this is 95. I remember this part now. So this is 1995.
So this is pre.
Yeah, this is pre
the light.
the event that we're talking about.
something told me to take everything in, the size, the shape, the color, the distance. They were about 3 to 6 feet each, depending on how close or far away they were. They were definitely oval shape. And I thought, if I don't get a picture of this, nobody's going to believe it. And as I ran to the closet to get my camera, my husband calls me back. He says, get over here quick. One of them is disappearing. And as I rushed back, we both watched in awe as the top orb started to dim as if on a dimmer switch. It didn't budge at all. I got onto the balcony, shot a quick picture of the 2 bottom orbs, and immediately noticed an eerie silence, as if time had stopped.
Okay, so this woman, Lynn, has become the face of the Phoenix Lights.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Did she put out a documentary about it?
She is the person. So if you look on YouTube at the Phoenix Lights or Google anything about the Phoenix Lights, a video of this woman is going to pop up.
Yeah, I saw her. I saw her when I was looking.
For some reason, this woman is the unofficial mascot of the Phoenix Lights. I don't know why, because when the Phoenix Lights happened, there wasn't a lot of testimonial from her. But she was the one to first report the lights in 95.
Okay.
Like, she talked in that interview about having photos of the...
And she said it was only like 100 yards away.
Yeah, but...
Like, that's really close.
Ironically, those photos never surfaced.
Yeah, well...
It was the 90s, to be fair. You could send a roll of film to get developed in the 90s, and it just come back and it was nothing. It happened all the time.
Or not come back.
Or not come back, yeah. Yeah, shit. The 90s were sketchy, folks. The 90s were real fucking sketchy. But...
all you kids with your Apple photos dropping right on your phone.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Not everybody was snapping pictures just with the press of a thumb. It was hey, if you got a camera, you've either got one in a closet somewhere because you don't want to shoot the fucking film because film was expensive back then. Or you have a disposable camera sitting somewhere that's been sitting for so fucking long that the film is probably no good at that point.
Been exposed.
So in that interview, she went on to say that she told her husband, go get the camera, go get the camera. He runs inside, grabs it. Dude literally took 5 minutes to dig it out of the closet.
Before... They didn't have it out since last Christmas.
Right. See, so it further drives home the point is the cameras were not just like sitting around in everybody's pocket back then. This is 95. So she became the face of the Phoenix Lights. She's the one that everyone wants to interview because technically she was the first one, heavy on the air quotes.
Yeah. Right.
To see it first, because she saw it before her husband saw it, and he didn't come out to see it until she said, "Hey, come on over here." And I think, if I remember correctly, some of the interviews, her husband really did not even want it part of it.
Like he didn't want to do the interviews.
He didn't want to. Like he's like, no, I don't want to tell anybody about it. And, you know, as far as I know, it didn't happen.
Okay.
And he was really salty about it. I don't know why. I feel like maybe he had a job that had a little bit of importance, and he didn't because there is a stigma behind it that if you you report things like this, that people are going to be like, well, he's an idiot.
And he won't be the only one that
No.
claims to have not said things at the time and then later,
Right.
you know, said things because they were afraid. They're afraid of the stigma or what. I mean, some don't say why, but they, you know.
Lots and lots of cops saw this. I think we talk later about how many reports by police, and a lot of the police were like, you know, it was nothing. It was just a whatever. It was a shooting star. But in the end, it turns out that this shit happens right over the top of the cops, and they were like, well, fuck, I can't can't deny it now.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on.
Moving on.
Prelude to the event, on the evening of March 13th, 1997, residents of Arizona witnessed a series of strange lights in the sky. Reports started coming in around 7:30 p.m. local time. The witnesses describing seeing a formation of lights in a V-shaped pattern moving slowly and silently across the sky. The lights were described as large, bright, and seemingly connected to a single massive object. So this is the cookie cutter explanation that everybody will give you, or not explanation, description that everybody will give you of the Phoenix lights. Is they were initially, everybody thought that they were just free floating lights, but one by one they started turning on.
Right. Yep. I keep seeing that in the accounts.
Right, and eventually somebody noticed. I mean, you notice a V-shaped formation in the sky. You're going to notice a V-shaped formation in the sky. There's lots of artist renderings of this, but I mean, they leave.
Some are good, some are not.
Yeah, they leave a lot to the imagination.
So you mentioned, that blurb is the thing that everybody describes it as, but I noticed that people also describe it as two separate events.
Yes.
Right. Both the object and then a line of lights that like moved across the state.
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
So from what I remember as a kid, we're going to start there. We're going to move backward in time before we come forward to the present. What I remember as a kid is that the lights showed up one at a time into a V formation, and then it moved silently across the sky, and it stayed there. That's what I remember in the news reports, was that it stayed there for several days. I remember hearing on the news. That's great. This was Detroit in the 90s, so I mean, take the news as far as you want. But I remember in the news them talking about the lights were there when dawn hit. And then dawn hit, you couldn't see the lights, but birds would fly over the town of Phoenix, and they would run into this invisible object and drop dead.
Oh.
This is
I didn't find any of that.
This is what I remember from the 90s.
Okay.
Because I was following this like crazy, because I wanted to know everything I could.
Right.
I grew up watching science fiction movies. I've listened to Coast to Coast AM since I was old enough to fucking, have a radio in my bedroom. This was the first time in my entire life that I saw anything UFO or alien related. So I followed it. Like a crackhead follows a crack rock. I was on it like a hobo on a ham sandwich. No offense to people that are homeless. I'm sorry.
Unrelenting.
But I clearly remember hearing reports of birds running into the object during the day, and then at night it came again. So once dusk hit, then the lights became visible again. Then night they were there again. I remember growing up hearing it, that the lights were there for like 3 days. That's just what I remember.
Okay.
But reports will tell you, some people will say it was individual lights that flew in formation. Some people will say that it was a V-shaped object with lights on the bottom, which is the majority of what everybody says. Some people will say that the lights were free floating. They came together in a V formation, flew in a V formation over the town, flew away, and then they saw more lights later.
Yeah, so if you go to, take Wikipedia for what it is. Anybody can put anything up there and say whatever they want. But in my first 3 polls on the internet about this, they're saying it was 1 day on there, at least on that one. They're saying it's March 13th, 1997.
Right.
And then they're also saying that it says some witnesses described seeing what appeared to be a huge carpenter square-shaped UFO, the triangle,
right,
containing 5 spherical lights. And then they go on to say there were 2 distinct events involved in the incident: a triangular formation of lights seen to pass over the state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area, as though they're 2 separate events. But the way the way the videos sound like is it sounds like it was an object that just moved super slow
Right.
over Phoenix, and then wasn't always moving, but also would move.
Right.
So that sounds like one incident.
The general consensus of the event is it was always moving, except at one point it became stationary directly over the town of Phoenix, but then it kept moving.
Okay. That
And
makes more sense.
this is reported across the state that it is seen away from the Phoenix area, as well as majority of the sightings were in the Phoenix area. So we'll get into the sighting. Let's see what I got written down about the sighting. The sighting began in the northwestern sky and progressed southward over the state, eventually reaching the city of Phoenix. Thousands of people witnessed the phenomenon, which lasted several hours. Eyewitnesses, including civilians, law enforcement, and even some pilots flying over the vicinity. And this is this is my favorite fucking tidbit of this entire story, and I've saved this because I wanted to see your reaction. The most famous and the first pilot to report the sighting is none other than Kurt Russell. I shit you not, friend. Kurt Russell, the Kurt fucking Russell, he was the first pilot to call in the sighting of the Phoenix Lights. He's so some actors they have hobbies like think about Keanu Reeves. How many you know, he probably has race cars and parachutes and skydives and conquers other planets. We don't know what he does in his free time.
You should see the video of him in his shooting range.
Oh, I have seen him, and it is.
It's scary. I mean, he's like scary good.
I don't want to anger that man ever. I will say
no.
Those shooting shots in John Wick were not stunt doubles. Those were him.
No, they were him.
Dude is pro level. But
yeah, he slides in and takes out 30 targets inside of like a little mock village in the back of his yard.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
The reloading, switching guns. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Two on his back and one on his hip.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Come the fuck out.
Okay.
So
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell was flying over Phoenix
and
was the first to report the lights.
To
the tower.
I'm pretty sure
the airport.
I'm pretty sure I have an audio clip here. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if this is video or an audio clip. Let's run it.
I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and I reported it. And they said, we're not painting anything. We don't show anything. I said, well, okay. I'm going to declare it's unidentified. It's flying, and it's 6 objects. That was the most viewed UFO event. Over 20,000 people saw that.
That was Kurt fucking Russell.
Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah,
you could tell in the voice. That's he's like, well, you're not seeing it, and it's unidentified, and it's flying. So that's funny.
So Kurt fucking Russell, the Kurt Russell.
Wow.
What was the big movie that he was? Was he? What was that movie? Something in L.A. and his character's name was Snake.
Oh, was it
like Lost? Was it Stranded in L.A.?
I thought it was Battle for Los Angeles.
No, that was the Alien movie.
Oh, okay.
Currently Googling. Escape from New York. That was it. Yeah, that was right. Because he did Escape from LA as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what I was thinking.
That was the big one. So people, if you don't know who Kurt Russell is, I'm sorry if there's younger people listening to this. We're getting close to 40, so so we know who Kurt Russell is. Let's see, what was the big one? So his first big movie.
For those of you that think that he made his career in one of the Fast and Furious movies,
he was not.
You're a little late to the show.
Yeah. So The Thing, 1982. Escape from New York, 1981. He was in Tombstone. Okay, so some younger listeners might know that one.
Who are you kidding? Younger listeners don't even know Tombstone the pizza.
Okay.
They definitely don't know Tombstone the movie.
He was, no offense to the younger listeners, we love you.
Listen to our podcast.
He was in the Hateful Eight. So that's
Yes.
that's close. That's as close as it'll get. I don't think he was in anything recently. Death Proof was another Quentin Tarantino movie. Let's see.
Yep.
Oh, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, he was Ego.
Oh, right. Yeah. He's the Celestial.
Yes, he was. I think his name was Ego.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he was,
that's the guy. He saw
Star-Lord's dad.
He was the first pilot to call in the sighting of the Phoenix Lights. So maybe he was secretly. Maybe he is Ego, and he made this Phoenix Lights happen.
And he called it in to cover it up and get into movies.
It's a perfect story, perfect alibi.
Airtight.
No one will figure this out. I'm so glad.
Okay, so
I'm so glad I got to see your reaction on the Kurt Russell thing.